Right, I'm here with Sophie Parker-Thomson MW, who is both co-owner of Blanc Canvas and on the committee of the Appellation Marlborough Wine MW as one of the founding members.
Yes, yeah. We were one of the founding members of Appellation Marlborough Wine about 5 years ago now. Yes, 2018 it was started and kicked off by Ivan Sutherland of Dog Point and John Buchanan and James Healy.
Yeah.
And yeah, that Clive Jones as well, so a few big names there,
Yeah.
veterans of the industry.
So as we're recording this, it is February, so it's not vintage yet, it's not harvest yet. By the time you actually watch this, it may be a little closer to harvest. So we're just going to ask some questions, if you don't mind, Sophie, about what the 2026 vintage has been, knowing, of course, it's like looking to the future.
It is, yeah, there's still quite a bit to go yet, Stephen. Well, you know, at this point in time, you cross fingers that you have a smooth run-in, because now is the crunch time in terms of that weather pattern. But in terms of how the growing season has been so far, we've had been very favourable conditions actually. We've had some of the highest growing degree days measurements for the ever actually, and we've had quite a lot of rainfall through January, which has really helped growth. The flowering was good. It was not as abundant as 2025,
Okay.
so quite balanced.
Okay.
Not as low as 24.
Okay.
Yeah, so sort of just average to slightly above average, which has been great because then you can make those decisions as to how you're going to manage your crop for quality.
Guess we'll wait and see what 26 brings.
Yeah.
A lot of 25s are on market, and I think most of the 24s have also been released now. And sort of speaking both generally and within the membership of AMW, looks like those two vintages are really quite different. The 25s have perhaps, I mean, you will have seen it in our previous articles, but that 25 seems to have more of a classic kind of Marlborough style. I don't know if you sort of agree that sort of gooseberry, like more herbaceous, lighter, crisper style, and 24 is this very ultra concentrated, floral, almost quite exotic vintage.
Correct. I think 24 was certainly a remarkable vintage just because the yields were so naturally low. We had so I guess that has really added to that intensity and concentration that we're seeing in the 2024 wines. I think we always joke that you had to be a muppet to make a bad wine in 2024, whereas obviously with 2025 we had some other nature throw at us a really abundant flowering, so there was a prolific amount of fruit on the vine, and so it was essential that if you wanted to make a good wine that you managed that crop accordingly and did work in the vineyard.
Right.
So I think with 2025 you've got to be a bit more careful, buyer beware, know your producer, look to professionals like the Real Review for those reviews, and to know which is the ones to go for. But there's I think it's with any region though, you get vintages where it's universally high quality across the whole vintage, and then other vintages where you do have to do a bit more research behind which producers and wines to go for. Really interesting observation that matched my husband and winemaker, co-founder of Blanc Canvas. What we've found is that we were just tasting through some of the wines that are still in barrel from 25, like our abstract Sauvignon Blanc, which is a barrel fermented, wild fermented style, and tasting it, we actually think it's one of the best we've ever done. And I think there's something in it where we feel that perhaps having taken that fruit off, the vines have responded to that and actually produced even better quality, more intensity. So we're not entirely, a lot of things with winemaking, we're not entirely sure the reasons why, but we've certainly noted that, and it's an interesting observation. So I think you potentially are going to see some wonderful wines out of 25 for those producers who are a quality focus.
And we saw a few of those in the AMW selection tasting, that there were some really beautiful standouts which had precision and concentration. And I guess you really sort of described it really well there, because as a vintage, unless you kind of do the research into each producer, you don't know whether that particular producer did like what you described with the Holdaway vineyard, where it was fruit thinned, or there was some crop that was removed, or fruit that was dropped.
Exactly.
I guess. As opposed to just picking a certain
up
amount
to
of
exactly,
fruit and leaving
exactly.
the rest of the fruit
Yeah.
on the vine.
And with Sauvignon, you know, it's not as dependent on having low yields to produce quality. It's actually about balance. It's not like Chardonnay or Pinot where there's a linear relationship with yield, lower yield equaling better quality. But there is, to a certain extent, there's an optimum yield, and it's about balance of the vineyard, balance of the vines, and that canopy to fruit.
Yep.
And so, yes, there's a lot of, you know, there needs to be an assessment around this time. Which is, you know, January to early February, where people will be going, okay, the fruit's starting to go through veraison, and so you'll start to look at, right, how either doing a green thin with your red wines, or taking some fruit off to make sure there's no clumping and that the fruit is balanced across that fruit zone.
Right. And that optimum level, that yield, can vary from subregion to subregion. What that number isn't static. Is it?
Exactly. I think with Sauvignon you can sustain slightly higher yields because in a higher vigor subregion where there's a lot of fertility in the soil, because naturally you get bigger vines, bigger canopies, and that bigger canopy system can sustain more fruit, and it means that you've got actually a longer ripening window as well, because obviously if there's too little on that vine, it's going to ripen too quickly, and you don't get that hang time.
Right.
Whereas, you know, some of the areas where there's poorer soils, perhaps, and not as much organic matter or nutrient in those soils, those vines should only be, you know, maintaining a smaller yield, because one thing that Sauvignon Blanc doesn't like is stress. I always describe it as a poor mother, you know. So Chardonnay is a good mother because it always looks after its fruit, its babies, and it can stress and still look after that. Whereas Sauvignon, as soon as it starts to stress, it will just forget its fruit, forget its babies, and the fruit really suffers, and it becomes, you know, flavourless and bland and not ideal. So there you go.
What happens when Sauvignon Blanc fruit or the vine becomes stressed? Yeah, is it,
well, the first thing
sulfur
to go,
compounds? What kind of stuff
Yeah,
happens?
the first thing to go is obviously the canopy. So, and that's what drives, that's all where the photosynthesis happens, and that's what drives all that flavour into that fruit. So for Sauvignon, the canopy is really important, and that's why you often see in Marlborough, you've got quite big canopies with Sauvignon, often up to kind of 3 metres high. And that's the engine room of the vine, and that's what drives that photosynthesis and sugars into the fruit. So when Sauvignon stresses, you'll start to see yellowing in that fruit zone, and then you can get the leaves start dying, and that's not a good result. You don't want to see that in Sauvignon.
Does it actually just stop ripening the fruit?
Yeah, it does. You can just see that it starts stalling, so you'll just see that the Brix level will just start not move, and then the flavour development just doesn't happen.
Something that kind of noticed in the AMW tastings, but also Marlborough as a whole, and you kind of mentioned it earlier with the abstract, is I wouldn't say it's the rise of, but it's the stabilizing of the other style of Sauvignon Blanc from Marlborough. And different producers seem to have their own take on what this other style is. Some of them are oaky, barrel fermented styles. Some of them are barrel fermented and not oaky. Some are, I think, like Paper Nautilus, for instance, is actually it's like a lighter, more delicate style. Is there a name for what you call this other style? Are we still calling it alternative Sauvignon Blanc?
No, I really don't like that word, actually. I think for many reasons it's kind of been the only phrase that to differentiate it from the classic style of Sauvignon, which is obviously that very fruit-driven, the famous Marlborough style. Exactly. So actually a colleague of fellow Master of Wine, Tony Patterson, when she was here with the AMW tasting, I think she really nailed it on the head in saying that it's kind of contemporary style, which I quite like, because one thing we're really conscious of
contemporary
with Appellation Marlborough Wine is that and I think one of the dangers of an appellation system is that if you have too many rules, you can stifle creativity to a large extent, and people get disenchanted with it and exit the appellation, which we're seeing quite a bit of now in Europe.
That's right.
So one thing we're very conscious of with Appellation Marlborough Wine is just to have some quite simple but robust rules, like a minimum bricks level, that means that you don't fetter the creativity in the cellar, and so that's why I think you're seeing such a interesting diversity of styles that are coming through in that contemporary category, which I think is great because we're still a young winemaking country. Sauvignon's only been on the ground for 50 years, and so I think this is a really exciting category that is continuing to evolve, and I think it's a big part of the future of Marlborough is having that success of the classic style, but also these really exciting contemporary styles coming in. So we don't stipulate any rules apart from our minimum ripeness level, and then the 100% Marlborough, and then the wines are all tasted before they're certified. Those blind tasters who are doing that certification process, they do know that it's a contemporary style, so they're not,
they're a bit more open-minded.
Exactly.
There.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Looking at AMW's work and also, as blank canvas, because I know you guys have just bought a vineyard recently, which is exciting. What do you think the biggest challenges, and at the same time, what are the most exciting things that are going to be happening in Marlborough over the next few years? Because it's a time of change.
It is a time of change, yeah. I think the evolution is definitely entering into its next phase, and I think one of the exciting things has been the recognition and understanding of our sub-regions, which has come through the map that we've developed, and it's now interactive. So if you want to geek out,
totally redefined what some of the sub-regions are, which is interesting.
Yeah. Well, that came through again, a lot of robust discussion and consultation over a period of years. So that's an exciting area. I think also we've got a lot of building excitement happening over Chardonnay here in Marlborough. There are some wonderful examples coming out, and as we get more vine age and we've got better clones in place, and some of the winemaking is just becoming that much more finessed, we've got some really exciting examples coming out there. And I think just there's a collective resonance, I guess, that we do need to now take action to ensure that what we have here is protected, and that a long-term view is taken for the sustainability of the region and the community.
Do you think Sauvignon is still going to play the biggest part in Marlborough?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it will. Yeah, absolutely. It's like Champagne. It's like Malbec in Argentina. I think
it's the regional identity.
It is, and I think I get frustrated sometimes when people say, Marlborough's it's too vulnerable, laying all its eggs in one basket with Sauvignon Blanc. But there are so many other examples, not just in wine, around the world, where there's regions that are famous for one product, one style, one type of thing, and Marlborough should be celebrating that and be proud of it. I think, and that's what I feel I'm seeing now is a stronger pride in the product from our Appellation Marlborough Wine producers. For all the time, I think you see winemakers, and you probably come across it too. They say, "Oh yeah, this is my Marlborough Sauvignon, but try my Pinot, try my Chardonnay." And they're kind of a bit embarrassed about their Sauvignon. Whereas I think,
and yet that's the one that kind of pays the bills off.
But it's also what is the most the highest quality and the most recognisable wine. I think doing blind tastings, it's a godsend when you get a Marlborough Sauvignon on the table, because it is one of the most recognisable wine styles in the world. I think, and we need to be proud of that.
We can talk for ages about this, and I can see a lot more rabbit holes opening up. But I've taken enough of your time already. Thanks, Sophie. Thanks.
You're welcome.